You know that friend who takes the Monday after the Super Bowl off every single year? The one who paints their face on a Tuesday? Who yells at a screen like the players can actually hear them? Who spends more on wings and jerseys than most people spend on rent? Yeah, that's not just a sports fan. That's something else entirely. And today, we're breaking down the psychology of people who are obsessed with the Super Bowl, the one society calls basic, football-brained, maybe a little unhinged. But science? Science calls them something much more interesting. Here's the thing most people miss. You assume Super Bowl obsession is about football. It's not. Over 1 in 5 people who watch the Super Bowl don't even follow the sport. They're there for the commercials, the halftime show, the guacamole, the ritual. 125 million people watched the last one. That's not a sporting event. That's a national event, a cultural event, a psychological event. And the people at the center of it, the obsessed ones, they're not just watching a game. They're protecting something inside themselves, something they might not even have a name for. Let's go there. Psychologists call it social identity theory. The idea is simple, but it runs deep. We don't just have personal identities, we have group identities, and those group identities shape how we see ourselves, how much we like ourselves, how safe we feel in the world. Being a fan of a team is one of those identities. Dr. Stephen Rayson, a psychology professor at Texas A&M, puts it like this: for highly identified fans, that team is you, and you are that team. If they win, you win. If they lose, you lose. Think about that for a second. They didn't play a single snap. They didn't train for a single day. But when their team wins, something in their brain registers a personal victory. Their cortisol drops, their testosterone rises, their self-esteem goes up. And when the team loses, genuine grief, not metaphor, real neurological grief. That's not irrational. That's just how human brains work when identity gets attached to something. But there's something even wilder going on inside the obsessed fan's head. When you watch a player throw a touchdown, your brain doesn't just observe it, it simulates it. Mirror neurons, brain cells that fire as though you're experiencing what you're witnessing, light up for a highly identified fan the same way they'd light up if they were on the field. The body releases the same hormones, the heart rate climbs, the hands go clammy. You are, in a very real neurological sense, in the game. That's why the obsessed fan isn't sitting, they're pacing. That's why they're yelling. That's why a bad call from a referee ruins their entire week. They're not overreacting. Their nervous system genuinely doesn't fully know the difference between watching and doing. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Think about what the modern world has quietly stolen from people. The neighborhood you grew up in, most people moved away. The church or temple or mosque that anchored the community, attendance is at historic lows. The corner bar where everybody knew your name, closing. The U.S. Surgeon General has called loneliness an epidemic. Dr. Rayson, again, humans are social creatures. We want to belong. Isolation is a growing problem. And right in the middle of all that loneliness, one Sunday a year, something extraordinary happens. 125 million people stop what they're doing. They gather, they wear the same colors, they eat the same food, they chant the same chants, they feel the same feelings at the same exact moment. Psychologists have a word for this. It comes from the sociologist Emile Durkheim, and it's called collective effervescence. It's the electricity you feel in a crowd when everyone is synchronized, when you stop being an individual and start being part of something bigger than yourself. It's what happens at concerts, at protests, at funerals. And the Super Bowl delivers it on a scale that almost nothing else on Earth can match. For the obsessed fan, that feeling isn't optional. It's the closest thing they have to the tribe their ancestors had. And here's something nobody talks about. The first Super Bowl, January 1967, didn't even sell out. They charged $15 for a ticket. People thought that was too expensive. The name Super Bowl was a joke. Literally, The owner who coined it, Lamar Hunt, wrote to the NFL commissioner and said he'd been kiddingly calling it the Super Bowl and that the name obviously can be improved upon. Even the man who named it thought it was a placeholder. Now, a 30-second commercial during the Super Bowl costs $10 million. Tickets on the resale market average nearly $6,000. Across the country, people spend a collective $20 billion on the single weekend. How do you go from nobody showed up to the most watched broadcast in the history of American television? You become a ritual. And rituals, real ones, aren't about the thing itself. They're about what the thing represents. So let's talk about the obsessed fan's brain on game day. Researchers identified two specific behaviors that define high-level fans. The first is called burging, basking in reflected glory. Your team wins, and suddenly it's "we won." You wear the jersey to work Monday morning. You walk a little taller. You feel personally accomplished. And the second is called corfing, cutting off reflected failure. Your team loses, and suddenly it's "they played terribly." You put the jersey away. You change the subject. You emotionally evacuate. Both of these are your brain doing something very specific, protecting your self-esteem by managing your association with the outcome. It looks like passion, it looks like fanaticism, but underneath it, it's just a person trying to feel okay about themselves. And we all do that. Sports fans just do it out loud. Now here's a number that should stop you cold. 8 of the 10 most watched TV broadcasts in American history are Super Bowls. The other two, the moon landing and Richard Nixon's resignation. Think about what that list says. Humanity walking on another world for the first time, a president resigning in disgrace, and 8 football games. That's not about sport. That's about the human need for shared experience. For a moment you know in real time that the entire country is watching the exact same thing you are. The obsessed fan doesn't just love the game, they love that feeling of existing inside a collective moment that feels for just one evening like the whole fractured world is briefly in the same room. But here's the part that deserves honesty. Not all Super Bowl obsession is created equal. For most people, it's healthy, it's community, it's connection, it's a reason to cook, to call family, to feel something together. Research consistently shows that sports fandom, at moderate levels, is genuinely associated with lower rates of loneliness and depression. But for some people, it tips. The fan whose mood is entirely dictated by the scoreboard, who picks fights after a loss, who spends money the family doesn't have on tickets or bets, who, when the season ends, doesn't know what to do with themselves. That's not passion anymore. That's outsourcing your emotional stability to something completely outside your control. And there's a real distinction worth sitting with. Are you obsessed with the Super Bowl because it fills something up in you, or because the rest of life has too many things that need filling? One is joy, the other is avoidance in a jersey. Here's what the obsessed fan actually understands that the rest of us miss. They have a ritual, a full, elaborate, deeply personal ritual. The specific wing order from the specific place, the lucky couch position, the shirt that can't be washed during playoff runs, the family that has to be in the room, the moment the anthem starts, and for just a second, everything else goes quiet. Psychologists will tell you that rituals, especially shared ones, are one of the most powerful mechanisms humans have for creating meaning. They mark time. They signal, "This matters to me." They say, in the language of behavior, "This is sacred to me." In a world that moves faster every year, that forgets things before they're even over, that scrolls past everything, the Super Bowl obsessed are, in their strange, loud, wing-stained way, refusing to let something pass without ceremony. That's not shallow, that's deeply human. So, if you're someone who's been planning this for weeks, who has an opinion about the halftime show lineup, who already knows what you're cooking, where everyone's sitting, and whose name you're writing in the betting pool, you're not just a football fan. You're someone who found a way to belong, someone who found a tribe, someone whose brain, wired for connection just like every human brain that ever lived, found its people and its ritual in the most American place imaginable. And honestly,
That's worth something. Tell me, are you a Super Bowl obsessive, or do you watch it just because everyone else does? Drop it in the comments. The psychology of both answers is more interesting than you think. And if you want to go deeper on why humans need rituals more than they know, the next video is going to change how you see almost everything you do without thinking. Click it. You'll understand why.